Hey everyone, Ranger William here from the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail, bringing you another episode, part 3 of our program covered with flame and smoke, weapons and tactics at the Battle of Kings Mountain, October 7th, 1780. Now what we're doing with this program is we're taking a very detailed, very in-depth look at the eyewitness accounts and battlefield archaeology of Kings Mountain. We're trying to get a better understanding of what weapons were these guys using at the battle, the Overmountain men, the Patriot Militia, the Loyalist Militia, Loyalist Provincials, and how were they used in combat? What really happened at the Battle of Kings Mountain, and why is this story so important, so pivotal to understand the Southern Campaign? Now, we started out with a little bit of a summary about the Overmountain Victory Trail. We talked about the lead up to the battle, Patriots surrounding this footprint-shaped ridge. We talked about flintlocks. We talked about projectiles, muskets and its side effects, rifles and their side effects. We talked about hand-to-hand combat. And now here we are, jumping in episode 3. The battle is finally going to begin. So go back, check out those other ones, understand a lot more about muskets, rifles, gunpowder, and let's see how they're going to get used. So you've got 4 columns of Patriot troops. They've been in the saddle since the night before the battle. They're arriving at the base of the ridge about 12:30, somewhere around there, but a long, thin line. These guys have been stretched out and miles long. They are arriving, maybe a brief little bit of rest at Saunders Cowpen on the evening of the 6th, but the 910 handpicked best marksmen, the freshest horses, they are chosen to keep going on all through the night, through a rainstorm, a thunderstorm, through the rain all that morning. Finally, 3 o'clock p.m., the battle begins. So who do we have here? Let me get my little laser pointer, and we're gonna walk our way around the ridge. There we go. So starting out here, we're going to look at William Campbell, going to be the elected commander of this whole force with his guys here on the southeast side of the we'll call it the heel, the southwest side of the heel of the footprint. You've got about 200 men from Southwest Virginia. Now, just across the ridge from him, you have Isaac Shelby, going to be that border, North Carolina, Tennessee. Shelby's going to have about 120 guys, both those who were handpicked at the Cowpen to keep going forward. But even back at Alexander's Ford on October 5th, they kind of picked out the guys that could move the fastest and chose them to keep going on in advance. So he's got about 120 of those guys. Now here, covering the heel, wrapping around, you've got John Sevier, Nolichucky Jack himself, with about 120 guys. Benjamin Cleveland from the Yadkin Valley, going to be up here on the northern side of the toe. Going to have about 110 guys with him there. Joseph McDowell, going to be here on the southeast side of the toe. You're going to see about 90 guys with him from Burke County, North Carolina. These are some guys who had opposed Ferguson earlier, Battle of Cane Creek, were defeated there, fled over the mountains to Isaac Shelby's guys, helped them get gathered, and now they're coming back. A little bit of a homecoming for these guys. Joseph is just a major here. His elder brother, Charles McDowell, is the actual colonel of this regiment, but he's been sent off to meet with General Gates and request aid, request some leadership, so he's not here at the actual battle. Now, between Cleveland and McDowell, you've got Joseph Winston, another Yadkin Valley leader, another major, about 60 guys with him from the Yadkin Valley. You got some South Carolinians, Edward Lacey, over here, leading some guys from South Carolina, men that were actually part of Thomas Sumter's militia, but due to a command dispute between James Williams and Thomas Sumter, Sumter has gone off to find the exiled Patriot government of South Carolina, request a promotion. So Sumter's not here, he's not involved, but his men are. William Hill, Edward Lacey, those guys are going to be over here in this area. And then James Williams, 60 guys here with Williams, about 100 with Lacey, and you've also got William Candler. This is going to be a handful of Georgians, about 20, 30 guys, Georgians that were sent by Elijah Clark to assist with this pursuit, assist with the campaign when he heard about what's happening on. And finally, you've got Graham and Hambright. William Graham is not going to be here when the battle begins. He's going to charge back in later. The story goes that as they were almost to the ridge, they're almost to the battlefield, William Graham's wife sends a messenger. Some sort of medical trouble was happening. We're not sure if it was having to do with childbirth or another illness, but Graham is sent for, and he requests and receives permission to leave to go back and check on her. So he's not there when the battle begins, but noted as later charging back in and being there at the end of the fight. So Frederick Hambright is going to be the leader of these guys. Including, you're going to have William Chronicle up here on the northern toe of the footprint, but Chronicle going to be killed in combat shortly after the battle begins. So that's what we're looking at with the forces involved on the Patriot side. Now, the Loyalists have approximately 1,100 men along this ridge. Now, the vast majority of these guys are going to be your local militia. They're going to be from some of the same regions that these Patriots are coming from. We're going to talk about that a little bit in a second, talking about some of these similarities. But kind of the backbone, the core of Ferguson's army are going to be these Provincials. About 80 to 90 of these guys. Some of the accounts vary, 88 to 92, somewhere around there. But these Provincials, the American Volunteers, Ferguson has called them, they're a step above your militia. They're right there between militia and British regulars. They are colonists. They are from New York, from New Jersey, from Connecticut, and they volunteered from their home units, some of which are back in New York City, some of which are now here in the South, but they have volunteered for this special service under Ferguson to come down and be this kind of training force. They have been used very effectively by Patrick Ferguson to kind of discipline and organize these militia. Ferguson calls these guys riflemen in a few times. It's believed that these guys are using, about half of these guys probably had the 1776 Ordnance Pattern rifle. There is some dispute over what rifle they had. A few people claim that they were issued the old Ferguson rifles that had been collecting dust since Patrick Ferguson's injury back in 1777. But most people are going to say no, it was more than likely these other rifles, these 1,000 rifles that the British had made, are going to be issuing out to certain light infantry companies. But either way, kind of some unconventional tactics here. Some of these guys have rifles. About 20 of these guys have been issued old naval cutlasses and mounted and turned into dragoons. And then Ferguson is going to reinforce his position not only with these kind of shock troops, the core of the Provincials, but you have up on the northeast toe about 17 supply wagons traveling with his army. They're going to put these in a semicircle as a kind of a defense. Now, the rest of the defenses here on the ridge, they're not going to be constructing anything because they don't need to. They're just using the rocky outcroppings that cover the ridge and the sides of this hill. Ferguson wrote about this on October 7th. He wrote to Cornwallis. He says, quote, "I am on my march towards you by a road leading from Cherokee Ford north of Kings Mountain. 300 or 400 good soldiers, part dragoons, would finish the business. Something must be done soon. This is their last push in this quarter." End quote. What's going on here? This is Ferguson's last and final request of reinforcements to his superior, Lord Cornwallis, just a day and a half march away back over in Charlotte, or a day of hard riding. Ferguson has repeatedly requested these reinforcements, especially dragoons, especially cavalry, because he knows he's being chased. He knows these Patriot partisans, different groups of these guys, are starting to converge on his location. And he thought they were going to go towards 96. He was going to try to intercept them. He was going to be right in the middle of them, keep them from uniting. Then he realized, wait, they're uniting for me. They're coming at me. So he is asking for reinforcements, especially dragoons. Now, also looking at his past military service, Ferguson began his career at 15 years old as a dragoon fighting against the French in the 7 Years' War. So maybe he's got a little soft spot there for cavalry. He knows their effectiveness in all different kinds of situations. When you're having to cover large pieces of ground like he is here in the South, these dragoons can really be useful. Now, let's see. Another reason that Ferguson is kind of making his position, making his hold here, he knows that, again, Cornwallis is nearby. Again, he thinks all these requests for aid are going to result in reinforcements arriving any day now. He does not know that none of his requests, none of his messengers have actually made it to Cornwallis yet. So here he is, surrounded on this rocky ridge, all by himself. Now, the past couple days, as he's been falling back to this position, kind of another reason that he's camped out here, he's wanting to maintain his men's strength. If you look at the diaries of the officers with Ferguson, the diary of Dr. Uzzel Johnson, Lieutenant Anthony Allaire, they show in the mileage of their marching, they'll have a good heavy days of march and then a couple easy days, maybe even a day of rest. With no marching at all. Ferguson is keeping up his men's health, keeping up their energy, because he does not want to be caught exhausted. He doesn't want to push his men, have them either march headlong into a trap or be just worn out from fatigue and then be attacked by these patriot militias, these partisans who are gathering around him. So he's trying to do slow, small marches, a little burst of speed, then a day of rest. He's at one of his rest days here at Kings Mountain. But again, knowing that these guys are getting close, as he said to Cornwallis, this is their last push in this quarter. One good day's ride and they could be on top of him. Little does he know, they're about to be all over him. Now let's see. His last message, not his request for reinforcements, but kind of boasting of how strong his spot is. This message is actually intercepted by the Patriots as they approach Kings Mountain. He says, quote, "I arrived today at Kings Mountain, and I have taken a post where I do not think I can be forced by a stronger enemy than that against me. God Almighty and all the rebels in hell can't remove me," end quote. So he's very confident in this position, but why is he so confident? Well, let's see what Isaac Shelby has to say. In his later description of Ferguson's camp and a description of Kings Mountain, Shelby says, quote, "The post taken by the enemy gave them confidence that any force the Americans could bring against them could not defeat them." Well, as Ferguson just said. Shelby goes on, "Truly, the situation of the ground gave them greatly the advantage, as the mountain was high and exceedingly steep in front, and interspersed along the top with craggy cliffs of rocks. In short, it was almost equal to storming regular works," end quote. So here, I mean, if you go today and visit Kings Mountain National Military Park, nice 1.5-mile trail takes you around a couple little rocky spots here and there, but nothing too significant. That is not what Shelby is describing. Shelby's talking about cliffs. He's talking about rocks along the top. A lot of this has been cleared out over the centuries. Robert Campbell, another patriot, also describes it. Here we go, quote, "The British beat to arms and immediately formed on top of the mountain behind a chain of rocks that appeared impregnable. They had their wagons drawn up on their flank across the end of the mountain, by which they made a strong breastwork," end quote. So there you've got some descriptions here. You've got rocks all along the top, the entire stretch of it. You've got wagons around a circle to close off the one more open part that maybe didn't have as many rocks. You have Ferguson, confident in his position, trained provincials, 1,000+ militia, and confident that any minute, any hour now, a couple hundred British dragoons going to come riding to his assistance. Little does he know that the Patriots, these riflemen, these frontiersmen, have handpicked their best 910 men, and they are slowly wrapping around his position, closing off any chance of him escaping or being reinforced. So that's episode 3 of our program, Covered with Flame and Smoke. Again, go back, check out 1 and 2, learn a little bit more about the weapons that were involved here, the rifles, muskets, bayonets, flintlocks, gunpowder, all that good stuff. And here we've had a description of the battlefield itself. Who are the forces involved? What is the ground like? Join us for episode 4 and beyond as we get more into the fight itself. So again, I'm Ranger William from the Overmountain Victory National Historic Trail. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.